as I keep reading more, this bookshelf seems to get smaller and smaller. I also got rid of a lot of books. I unhauled quite a bit of books, and I now have a PANGO. So that's a new development. Months later, I've thought about this book, trying to figure out if I'm just not smart enough for it. And I think it's not that I wasn't smart enough for it, it just wasn't enjoyable end of the day. Hey y'all, and welcome back to another video of my bookish life with Kel Sweeney. Today we are reorganizing my bookshelf. I do this every single year. Last year I did it, but I didn't post a video about it. It's okay. But I try to reorganize my bookshelf. One, it gives me a chance to look at what's something that I want to unhaul. And two, it also gives me a chance to open up my bookshelf a little bit more. As I keep reading more, this bookshelf seems to get smaller and smaller. But also the way that I need to organize my books allows for more books to be fit on there. You may notice behind me, this shelf seems to have far more space on it. This used to be my horror shelf. The other thing is that I really don't stray away from anything other than speculative fiction now. I may fit in a nonfiction here and there that has its own space. I may pick up a children's book because I collect them for artistic purposes. I may pick up a nostalgic middle grade book that I know from my childhood, from my own library, and those have their spaces. But other than that, a lot of it is specified by identity or community, since that's how I read now. And I rather have looked at my library as more of a community or a diversity conversation rather than a genre one, since I find myself experimenting and asking questions about the genres that we put things in far more. So I wasn't even believing my own genre. I'd put something in a genre and then give it a couple of months. Maybe I've read something that's made me change my mind about what that genre is, and now I'm like, it shouldn't even be in that anymore. So for my own peace of mind, I've really changed that up. Another thing that I've done before that this is a brand new thing that I brought in last year was having a physical TBR shelf, which has been very helpful for me from having anxiety in one way, but in another way, it's been very helpful for me to kind of have a place to choose from month to month as I'm choosing my TBR. It's become a lot easier for me to understand, okay, what am I going to read this upcoming month? And I'm even planning 3 months ahead. I got ahead of myself at one point, was planning even further ahead at one point, and now I've gone back to just planning 3 months in advance. And now my physical TBR shelf is actually set up the same way my regular shelf is, which is by demographic and certain community identifiers. I also got rid of a lot of books. I unhauled quite a bit of books, and I now have a PANGO. So that's a new development. There's a huge stack of books that are actually going to be on my PANGO. So that's new, trying to get a hustle on. Trying to make back some of the money that I lost on maybe some of these books that I didn't like or ended up just not being it for me. Or also, there's some physical books on this shelf that I just have outgrown. Now being more of a speculative fiction reader, things like domestic thrillers aren't really as interesting to me anymore. Series, I know that I'm not really a series reader, so anything that's a series, I'm pretty much like, that's gotta go. Classic horror from certain authors, I'm like, not really interested in it anymore, so that's gotta go. And also, of course, just books that I unhauled that I just didn't like last year, which I started doing that. I don't know if I'm gonna do that again this year, where I kind of had a ongoing pile of books that were so lowly rated that I was just like, I'm not keeping this. I know I'm not going to keep this, so no point in even fitting it into my library. Or DNFs that I was just like, I'm never coming back to this. I hated this book. So we will get to what those things are and what my physical TBR shelf looks like in just a moment. Let's go back to before this new year, and where I was organizing my shelves and getting rid of some things, and we can sort through all of that footage and then come back and I will show you how my bookshelf is set up now. Hey y'all, I've probably already done my video intro by now, so I wanted to kind of just jump into it. I never know how to really start off these unhaul videos. I already off camera have reorganized and chosen what books I'm going to unhaul from my TBR because I didn't know how I was going to handle it. I wasn't expecting for this many things to be kind of in this list of things I was unhauling or where my reorganization kind of ended up. And the reason why I did this first is because what I've done here for organizing my TBR shelf is kind of where I'm going for my actual bookshelf reorg, which I will show you where we're at right now and the ideas I'm going to go about doing it in just a moment. If you're new here, I choose my books in my TBR month to month based off what culture we're celebrating that month, what identity we're celebrating that month. So while January for me personally is kind of a quote unquote off month where it's kind of a free month and I can read whatever I'd like, February is Black History Month, so I'll be reading nothing but Black authors all of that month. March is Women's History Month, so I'll only be reading from femmes. It's so this, that, and the third. That's basically the basis of one, this entire channel, but really my entire reading. And I've been doing that for the last 2 years now. And honestly, it's been huge for me. It's how I love reading. I've learned so much from reading that way, and I don't see that changing anytime whatsoever soon. I really appreciate reading that way, and it gives a lot more structure to my reading. Plus, I've just learned so much by reading that way in just the last 2 years alone. So because of that, what I've noticed is that I would rather have a good instant look to see, okay, what do I have available for the upcoming month to form my TBR? Because I usually reach towards my physical TBR shelf first when coming up with my TBR for the month. And if I'm seeing like, oh, I'm not really seeing much in that category, then I can kind of get loose with it. And I'm going to give you a closer look. So let's move the camera up, shall we? I already know what I'm unhauling off of my physical TBR. Now, I still have my actual bookcase. This is actually a pretty big stack of books. I really felt like I wasn't going to get rid of this many books, but now looking at this stack, I think, I don't know, maybe going through some of this, I may have some second thoughts. But very quickly, let's talk about what I am unhauling off of both my physical TBR. Basically, these are books that have been on my physical TBR for far too long. And in the last year or so, I've really, really nailed down what I gravitate to. I really understand better now what gets me excited to read and what am I just like, maybe it was a free book and I took advantage of that, or maybe a lot of people were talking about it, but I'm really learning now I don't care too much about what everybody else is kind of talking about. And it's just been on my TBR for far too long. First and foremost, let's go through the things that either were hard DNFs or got such a low rating that I'm like, I already knew that I didn't want them in my personal library anymore. Talia Hibbert's Highly Suspicious and Fairly Cute. Unfortunately, I started reading this and I just wasn't a huge fan. I think that I really loved the premise and the idea of having two bisexual characters, especially Black bisexual characters, having this whole thing. But one thing I've realized, I don't want to read about teenagers. I've really, truly realized that I could not care less. It sounds far too young, and I feel like for me, I can't. It's not even the fact that it's like, oh, they're teenagers, so understand that they're like kind of being very young and childish in the way that they may be acting. For me personally, it's like, well, then why would I be reading this? It's just not enough for me personally, and I end up just being upset at the entire thing. So I am gonna be getting rid of this. I'm gonna put it up on my PANGO though. Trinity. I finished this book and it was one of my lowest rated, like top 5 worst rated books of this like last year. It just made absolutely no sense to me. It wasn't enjoyable, and honestly, it took an extremely weird turn by the end. And I'm still, months later, I've thought about this book trying to figure out if I'm just not smart enough for it. And I think it's not that I wasn't smart enough for it. It just wasn't enjoyable, end of the day. The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan. I know that this is a classic. However, I feel like it's extremely dated. I got through maybe 15-20%, and the language that was being used in here honestly felt very racist in a lot of different ways. I think that when this was written in the 80s, it was definitely something that was necessary. But now reading it in 2025, it reads like it's something from the 80s, and it wasn't enjoyable. I felt like I could get so much more of wherever this was starting to go as far as family and womanhood and history and that whole experience that the Joy Luck Club is supposed to be about from many more contemporary books that I have available. So I ended up not reading this, which I was sad about because I know this is a classic. I would love to say, oh, I've read the Joy Luck Club. So it's unfortunate, but it just wasn't for me. Paul Tremblay's The Cabin at the End of the World. This was one of my first lowest rated. No, it wasn't. It actually wasn't my lowest rated. I got rid of my first lowest rated. Was probably one of the first book I read of 2025, which maybe was a sign for the year to go. But that was Cleo and Frankenstein, and I knew that I didn't like that one so much that I ended up donating that one essentially immediately. This was the second, though, and it was one of my second tries at trying to read Paul Tremblay. I understand that y'all love him, or y'all at least keep on telling me, read Head Full of Ghosts, read Head Full of Ghosts. I'm sorry. Maybe one day I will, but there's far too many other books for me to read out there from authors that are new to me or that I know I love their work. I've tried 2 times now with Paul Tremblay, and I'm just not enjoying it enough. And I think the other thing is, too, is that I think it really is his writing style as opposed to any sort of plot, because the plots are spot on. I think that's what's upsetting me the most, is I love the plots. His characters just aren't it for me. So we're getting rid of this. Such Sharp Teeth by Rachel Harrison. I know y'all love this book. Y'all love Rachel Harrison. Y'all love this book. I have another Rachel Harrison on my TBR, which is Black Sheep. I'm going to try that out, but this just read too young for me. It was supposed to be a romantic comedy thing, and I wasn't feeling it. The characters in here are supposed to be around my age. They read like they were 14. I just couldn't get into it whatsoever. I tried my best, and I had to DNF, and I knew I really wouldn't come back to it. Come Closer by Sarah Grant. I hated this book. I really, truly hated this book. I know that this ends up on so many people's reference books. So many people like recommend this book constantly, which is why I was excited to read it, because I was like, oh, I'll finally understand. There were so many microaggressions, like not even microaggressions low key, but like homophobia, racism. The way that the possession was talked about felt extremely, for me personally as a Black woman reading it, felt racist for me. And there were some portions of it where the possession, we want to say that it was the ghost's fault, but honestly, I'm not certain with this main character. I just really hated her. There was also moments of homophobia that I just didn't like, and I didn't feel like moved the plot forward, that it needed to be included. So we're definitely getting rid of this. I don't understand why this is y'all's fave. The Year of the Witching, another one that everyone in the world loves. As I've learned, I really just don't care about Puritan witches. And this was my try after reading Slewfoot and a couple of other, and as well as, what was the one before Practical Magic? It's not Practical Magic, but the prequel for it. It's just not coming to mind right now. I read both of those, ended up DNFing it because I was just not having a good time. I know this is some of y'all's favorite. I read Alexis Henderson's House of Hunger, and I love that. That was a great read. I just think personally, I just don't like the Puritan time era whatsoever, and I don't like Puritan witches. I'll talk more about this during February. In all honesty, I think that that's a very interesting conversation to have because I love Conjure. Sucker by Daniel Hornsby. I'm going to be honest with you. I picked this up, one, because I had heard a couple of bookstagrammers give it a good review, but it was the cover. The cover grabbed me. I really loved it. Honestly, I'm still upset that I'm going to get rid of this because I still really do love the cover, but it was giving 1%er lip fic, and the main character sucked so much that I wasn't really into him. Even like some of the other characters who you're supposed to feel bad for, I just wasn't into. I think I got into 5%, and I was like, I truly could not care less about what's happening in this story whatsoever. Somebody else can enjoy this wonderful cover. My Husband by Maud Ventura. This was one of the last, like, I read it this month. I hated it. Y'all, I don't know how this ended up on my side of Book Talk. It was, when y'all told me she was obsessed with her husband, I was like, oh, she's going to eat him. That's what she's gonna do. Like, the weird girls were reading this. So I was like, oh, something weird must happen. Nothing weird happens in this, y'all. Nothing. She's just obsessed with him. And then is gaslit the entire time or something? I don't know. It was the most boring thing I've probably read all year. I'm gonna be honest with you. And I think it's extremely overhyped. Like, extremely overhyped. I'm not really understanding why people love this so much. I don't know if it's because some people feel like they could truly relate to it. Personally, for me, I feel like it didn't provide any new insight that felt like it was groundbreaking. DeMonte laughs last again. Y'all loved this book. I hated it. I couldn't get through it. I tried so hard to get through it. I did not appreciate how Social Gonzalez was writing one of the characters in here. Our like younger character, what's her name? Raquel. I truly hated her. I mean, the way that she was speaking, I felt like she didn't feel authentic to me whatsoever. She was supposed to be like this Latina who was constantly talking about how Latina she was while at this white institution. They talked about this institution and the PLC programs that were there as third world. They literally were calling it third world. And that's the people of color were calling it third world too. Like I know that like that part's supposed to take place during the 90s, but in no circumstance I think that's wild. So it didn't feel authentic to me. I would constantly wait for Raquel to be done talking, and I was hating it the entire time I was reading it. I hated it. It's definitely later. And we're going for continuity purposes, going to act like it's not hours later. Because I can't just re-record all of that. So let's continue on with my unhaul that I'm going to be doing, and then let's talk about this bookshelf and get into all of that. Continuity, we love it. I'm also going to be getting rid of this copy of 4 Past Midnight. This is apparently the collection of stories that has The Secret Window by Stephen King. I love The Secret Window, the movie, and I picked this up at the thrift store wanting to read the actual book, or like the novella, I guess it is. Here's the thing. I would find it very surprising if I actually the portion that is actually The Secret Window is this. Considering a lot of things that Stephen King has said, I really don't have any want to read any Stephen King novels. Just being completely honest with you. I have novels that I've read of his that I really have liked. He's a hit or miss author for me personally. I just know that I'm not going to read this. Not currently with how I feel about the author. And honestly, while I do like that movie, I don't love it enough to be like, okay, I need to read the subject matter, even though I have a lot of mixed feelings in regards to this author right now. There's another Stephen King novel on here as well that I picked up at the store. Stephen King's Different Seasons. I believe this is the one that has Shawshank Redemption in it. I picked this one up as well. I know that I'm not going to read either one of these currently, so I'm gonna get rid of them. Next, I kind of went into this horror paperback type of thing, and even now I get a little like antsy to pick up a horror paperback up at the thrift store whenever I kind of see them. They just look gorgeous to me, but I'm realizing I'm not going to actually read them. This is just me being realistic. That's not my swerve. It's not what's going to happen. And that's why I picked up all 3 of these. Patricia Cornell's Postmortem, Brainchild by George Turner, as well as Sister Sister by Andrew Neerdeman. I know that some of y'all who may be vintage paperback horror like people may be looking this and going, dude, you should really read that. I don't care to. Being honest with myself, I picked these up because I just thought that the covers were very interesting and amazing. Speaking of going to the thrift store and my eyes being bigger than my actual TBR, I was at a Goodwill earlier this year, and somehow I found someone's whole collection of Charlene Harris's Sookie Stackhouse series, which, if you don't know, it's the True Blood series. If you don't remember what True Blood was, it was on HBO. And yes, I tried to start watching it when I was bored sometime last year. While I'm glad that I got through like the first season, and I definitely got to finally see the amazingness that is, I can't think of their name, Lafayette. Love him boots down. He made the entire show. He's honestly the only reason I kept watching, because that show is horrible, and not even in a good way for me personally. I know that some of y'all love that show. It's just not for me. And I saw the books and the entire collection was there. And I'm somebody who doesn't like to split up a group. Or when I see somebody's collection, I'm just like, oh my God, somebody's collection is here. And sometime about a couple of years ago, I got a like vampire smutty novel that was like some cheap paperback and ended up loving it. That was not the case with these. I just wasn't interested in them. And I think that I'm just not in a smutty novel era of my life. And somebody else could definitely love these and probably would be astounded to see this whole series at the thrift store. So I'm getting rid of them. I am. I'm not happy about it per se, but I'm sorry to anybody. I know that there are diehard readers of these, but it felt personally, it felt like trying to read the Twilight series, and I'm 30, and not like 13 anymore. Uh, like everybody going through that moment right now. Yeah, that was how I felt trying to read these. This one, unfortunately, I'm not necessarily very proud of having to get rid of this one, but this was sent to me by an indie author. They had just asked if they could send it to me. I make it very known that I don't really like taking indie author books, especially now. I really don't want any indie authors sending me any of their books because if it doesn't have like a audiobook to it, I'm probably not going to read it. And it's not because I don't want to maybe read your book. I just don't have time to read with my eyes most times. And it's a lot of pressure to, of course, you're sending it to me using your own money, and I have to read this, and you know, I want to review it so that some people know that it's coming out. It looked honestly very interesting and kind of very House of Leaves, like in these portions that have this strange formatting with the interior design and stuff. Like this happens throughout. And at the end, it also turns into like these logs. But at the same time, I've had this book now for 2 years and I have not been able to read it whatsoever. I also hate that for me, and I think the only reason why I've kept it for so long is because I felt a lot of guilt having this being sent to me and having not read it. And I wanted to, I guess, sit there and at least read it and be like, well, I read it. I know that I didn't read it in time, but I did read something that you sent me. I just know I'm probably not going to get around to reading it, and I've had a lot of stress about that. And I need to just have somebody maybe out there read this book. I think it has a very interesting cover, and so I don't feel like nobody's going to pick up this book whatsoever if I donate it. I think that somebody's going to go, well, that seems interesting. I did. I truly did. I'm at that point where I just know that I'm not going to pick this up. I hate that. I hate it. I truly do. I thought about not even having this in here, but this is further reason why I do not ask any indie authors to ever send me anything. I'm not going to be able to get to it or review it, and I don't want you wasting your money sending it to me, because at that point it's just you gifting me something rather than me doing you any good. I also have been burned in the past with it because I've read things that an indie author has sent me and then really hated it, and because they know me personally, I feel horrible about kind of posting my true thoughts about it because you send it to me personally. So yeah, there's been a lot of discord about that online. I feel like in the Bookstagram sphere, especially in horror as of late, it's very strange, and I rather just distance myself from it. The next set of books, a lot of these I feel like may surprise people that I'm getting rid of them, and I think them being so popular is probably why I've kept them in the first place, or even why I bought them in the first place. So first and foremost is The Other Valley by Scott Alexander Howard. A lot of people were talking about this. I think it ended up on the Goodreads awards last year. And while I was doing my Sweet Reads awards, which I didn't do this last year, y'all were like, you should read it. And I started reading it and I was bored. I was bored to tears. It was so slow. I didn't know that it was Parisian. There was a lot going on with it, and I had no interest to keep on reading it. It really was boring me. It wasn't as sci-fi weird, and it was leaning very like kind of romance. And I realized that that's just not the book for me. So I DNF this very hard, and somebody else will enjoy this, certainly. Where the Dead Wait by Allie Wilkes. I've heard, now I got this in a book box, but I've heard people talk about it and they have enjoyed it. I'm being honest with myself on the fact that I probably do not want to read this. I've now had it for 2 years. I've not picked it up once. I've not been drawn to even picking it up. I need to just let it go. A lot of these I feel like are me going, hey, you need to be honest about what you want to read, what you're gravitating to. There's a lot of books here that I'm like, I can't wait to read those things. This is not one of them. I've not gravitated in 2 years to it at some point. I think that that's like my unwritten rule. I'm realizing you have 2 years for me to be like, oh, I want to read that. If we're past those 2 years, maybe honestly, I've missed the season on wanting to read you. Starling House by Alex E. Harrow. I don't know how to pronounce their last name. Y'all, I've heard so much about this book. I got this one and a couple of these other ones for free through Reese's Book Club. They were nice enough to give me some books when I did like a Instagram content thing for them. When I got this, everybody in the world was talking about it, so I thought I'd pick it up. I'd heard good things about it. Here's the thing. I have no one to read this. I picked this up because a lot of people talked about it. I know that some of y'all are like, that I love that book. I heard a lot of people say they love this book. That's why I picked it up. Mother-Daughter Murder Night by Nina Simon. Again, heard a lot of people talk about it. I'm not interested in it. I know that's like a cozy mystery type of thing or a cozy thriller. First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston. Elston. I was right about that. Elston. I'm not a thriller girl. At least like I'm a horror thriller girl, but I'm not like a domestic thriller girl, you know? I'm realizing I'm not probably really a Reese's Book Club girl in most cases. A lot of these are just like thrillers, like domestic thriller type of thing. I would love to watch one, but I've learned that I'm just not a reader for it. Same thing goes for Lisa Jewell. None of this is true. I know that a lot of people read this and really enjoyed it, thought that it was good. Again, it's a thriller, it's a domestic thriller. I just feel like this isn't what I want to read, where my reading is. So there's no reason that I should keep on having this when somebody could be way happier and actually enjoy it and read it. Paper Palace by Miranda Cowley Heller. I thought this was an interesting premise, but again, it's not a domestic thriller. It's more like a lit fic conversation about aging and love and this, that, and I'm never going to pick this up. And finally, Lucy Foley's The Guest List. Again, another thriller that tons of people have talked about, and I picked up when I got all those free books from Reese's Book Club. Right, exactly. So, I again, being honest with myself, I don't want to read this. I shouldn't keep on holding on to it. That is all of the books that I'll be unhauling that are from my physical TBR, as well as my hard DNF or like really low rated books from last year. There's a chance that while organizing my bookcase, I may find some more things to add to this very big pile. If you're interested in any of the books that I showed, I will be posting them on my PANGO. This upcoming year, I am going to be utilizing having a PANGO account and see where that takes me. If you are interested in any of them, go check out my PANGO storefront. I think that's what they call them, storefronts. If you want to pick up any of them and snag one for yourself, I'm going to have low prices for them. Like, I'm not going to gouge anybody. I am very happy with this though. I'm glad that it's very clean. It does make me feel a whole lot less anxiety, and even looking at what I'm getting rid of, I've been honest with myself looking at that long list that I'm like, you were never going to read those. So at least now kind of seeing this, I'm like, this feels realistic and I'm happy to pick from this group. It kind of feels a lot more less like you're just collecting books to be collecting them, and instead actually having like this low corner of things to actually choose from. So let's move on to the bookcase. Here is my book nook in nearly all of its entirety. You cannot really see to the floor, which is important. You can't really see too much up at the top because of the garland, but you get the main idea. I love my book nook, but it, as you can see, has no more room for any books that I finished. Actually, as I'm recording this, I just finished reading The Conjuring of America. Really, really great. It deserves all of its hype. I have nowhere to put it. I know that I want it somewhere in this section. Currently, that may change after what I try to do, but it has nowhere to go. It can't go here. Maybe I can put it here, but it's just kind of it's just going to sit there. There's no space for it here. Maybe if I get, there's no space. There's no more space. Here's the thing that I've learned is that if I get to the end of the year and there's no more space on this bookshelf, I kind of love that because it means you did good. Because for the last about 2 years, ever since I got back into reading, that has been the circumstance. I've not had any space once I get to the end of the year and I have to reconfigure. And that's where how this horror section is kind of set up and really how my bookcase is set up entirely. I go for like the kind of puzzling look because I love for it to look very, I don't love a really clean bookshelf, obviously, as I have all these like knickknacks and like interests and everything behind me and all of that, you know, I love that look. And I don't think that that's because I don't have any space to give. I just simply need to reconfigure what's already here. I also need to be honest about some things that are already sitting on this bookshelf that maybe just I don't love anymore and just need to be donated. I think that this is taking up a lot of great real estate and it doesn't cause a lot of joy. So I'm going to get rid of it. That's going to create a lot of space for my middle grade to go, which here you'll see I have all the series of unfortunate events here. While behind this plant and these little doodads here, it came in a box and I love the illustrations on the box, kept the box, and at one point in time it looked very nice. But again, that's space we need for books. And whatever extra space I may have, I would love for all of my Goosebumps and all these other novels to go up here. This is like a full middle grade section, which would then make this section, it would pair to this, which I still want to keep. This here is my picture book, children's book section. I still really love this here and I want to keep that there because I do collect children's books. So that will still be here. I have memoirs and nonfiction up there, but mainly memoirs. And I do want to have a memoir section because I really loved having like a memoirs type of month during August for Artist Appreciation Month. That was great and I loved reading all of that and I want to continue doing that. So we need to rediscover what that's going to be. This area has always kept this radio that's Bluetooth. It actually works. It needs to find a different location in this house and not on this bookshelf. After pushing everything up here, that will open up this space that right now has a lot of like toys and stuff that I love. Those need to move or need to be reconfigured somehow. This shelf down here is honestly just me putting stuff wherever. I don't even know why I made a shelf that small when I did this bookshelf. And the thing about IKEA shelves is like why they're supposed to be modular, you can't pull, it's not easy. So more times than not, you're just going to sit there and wherever you put it in, that's how it's going to stay. And here's the big also issue. I have no more space in these genre areas. So let's put this down. We have our horror section. I'm very proud of seeing it all stacked up like this. There's room right here for a paperback to go. And maybe if I move this classic, this Edgar Allan Poe classic, we can maybe fit, depending on the size of it, 1 or 2 books there. No, that's not going to handle me for next year at all. Down here is kind of weird lit / horror. For the most part is in this area. I can move these too, but again, I do like the look of like tchotchkes on my shelves, but you know, not huge radios sitting there. I gotta here we have things that are like sci-fi, folklorish, just I don't know. If it has to do with a monster, it's in this area. Again, there's no more space. And here is a mixture of definitely literary fiction, slight romance. There's barely any romance there anymore. And that's it. There's also no room there. Other than that, down here in these lower portions that you can barely see, I don't even think you can see down here that's like I'm really, really pointing to. Out of the shot, down here are a lot of cookbooks, craft books, stuff like that. Things that I would like to reference. I don't reference them a lot, but I also would not like to get rid of them just in case I want to reference them at some point. Point of the matter is, that's where those are. And then Here is where I have my TBR. It's out of the shot. You can't see it. Doesn't matter. But down there is where I have my TBR for the next 3 months. And I've been planning out my TBR ahead of time, 3 months in advance, because that allows me a lot of freedom to, well, it's not freedom, but it does allow me to at least think ahead, and it helps me out a lot. I've been doing it and it's been extremely helpful, and I want to keep on doing it in the upcoming year. It was something that I started last year and I want to keep on doing it. This section over here that you can't see that's out of the camera is a mixture of many different things. I don't even know, but it's full. There's like my graphic novel and comic book area. I do want to still have an area like that, but it is full. And then below that is again something that's got like everything but books there. Actually, I had a lot of my DNFs and low ratings placed on this shelf that's on the very lowest over here and out of shot. I am going to rearrange this bookshelf now, using that in mind, as well as taking some things off of here that are taking up some very precious real estate. We will see where that goes. And along the way, I'm also going to be honest about some books that are on these shelves that maybe I didn't love that much this last year of reading. Or maybe it made it through the rounds last year, but this year I'm like, you know what, I didn't really love you. The thing is that I'm not sure if I can make more space. That is the biggest issue, is that I need more space in order for me to keep reading for this upcoming year and having spaces to put them. And currently, that means something's going to have to give on getting rid of some stuff or rearranging to the best of my ability. But again, I just finished that book. That's 74, and I know that I'm going to read at least one more book by the end of the year. I read 75 new books this year. I'm keeping, based off of the DNFs and stuff, I'm keeping at least, 60, 65 of those. There's 65 new books on this shelf since the last year. So that's basically in my mind what I have to keep space for. I have to make space for at least 65 new books, and that's as somebody who made their 2026 goal for reading 75 books. I know that all 75 I won't keep. There's no way. Nobody has that good of a reading here. But even if I was to get 70 or even 65, considering this year's numbers, there's not enough space for even 2 more books on this shelf. Let's hope that I can do this. I'll let y'all know if it happens or not, because you probably saw me in the intro with my brand new setup. So this is section 1. You may be wondering, Kelsey, why can't we see what's on that very top shelf? Those are all records. I am a huge physical media nerd, and before we were into DVDs and Blu-ray and everything in this household, we were into vinyl. So all of my vinyl are up here at this top shelf. There you go. That's all the answers you need about what's on those top shelves you can't see. Let's move into the actual books. This section, one, I've cleaned up a lot, even here on the bottom. Usually these 2 bottom portions, I'm like, don't pay attention to those. They're not pretty. With my new setup on how I kind of talk to y'all in these sit-down videos, I found that I was very frustrated with how this bottom portion would look, and so I've cleaned it up a bit. We do love board games in this house, and so you may get a peek at some of the board games that are down here at the bottom. That's mainly what's down here at the bottom. You can't really see too much right now, but again, I know the questions will come up, so here we are. Up on this shelf here, it's a little bit more on the vinyl, and that wouldn't fit up there. But also, a lot of these books are more like self-help reference books are in this section. I know that I'm not a huge self-help reader, but when I want to learn something, I do pick up a book. It's nice to have something to highlight. So I do have some self-help books in this area. Don't burn me at the stake. It's only a few of them. And a dictionary, okay? Let's move from that very boring shelf up to this shelf. I have a lot of interest in spiritualism and beliefs in theology. I'm very interested in all of these different things and reading up on different kinds. And so I've collected over the years a lot of different books that are Wicca or Hoodoo or Crystal, New Age, even the Bible, the Quran is even here from like when I read it in college and everything. I also have a book like The Conjuring of America in this section. And this year I want to focus more on reading up on Hoodoo and ancestral religion. So when I start to get through some of those books and buy some of them for my own library, I will have them in this section. I just kind of had them all over the place, and even a book like the Book of Negro Folklore by Langston Hughes, which is over here. I had this originally in a lot of like my black writing, like black literature section, and I found that didn't really make sense to me when I thought about it. So that's now over here as well because folklore is a belief system, and so that's all here. On the other side of it, this is where I like that I have my bookshelf set up this way because it's really pointed out some very clear things to me, and that's where my blind spots are. And one of those is Latino authors. This is my Latino author pile. It is very small. It is mighty though. I think I gave 5 stars to nearly every book that's in this section right here. I get to Latino authors during September mainly. And what I don't like is that I'm not finding moments to read them all year or finding situations to read them all year. And that's something that I'm kind of looking forward to in the new year. Looking at my physical TBR shelf is during Women's History Month finding Latino films to read from. And actually, Reservoir Bitches, I read during March of last year for that reason. But a lot of these others were all read during September. And I want to kind of be better in these free months that I have to also find time to still read within a certain demographic that maybe is an intersection of that background. So that's something that I definitely want to do. But I am, again, all of these that are here, I'm very proud of this stack. I love every single book that is on this stack right here. But I think as it grows, this portion, this is my recipe box. This is going to have to find probably somewhere else to live as this half of it grows. And you'll notice that there are 2 sections, I believe, that have been split in half just because of how many shelves I have and how many books that are on that shelf. My next shelf up here, barely any space. These are all my white male authors. A lot of these are from when I first started getting into horror and speculative fiction, and I was getting a lot of recommendations from mainly were white authors, white male authors. Now, I will say there are a lot of books here that I love. I don't have a problem reading from a white male author. The Loop is still one of my favorite books. Nat Cassie is still one of my favorite authors. I mean, When the Wolf Come Home made me bawl out crying. I still love Ready Player One and Project Hail Mary. These are all still books that I love. But I will say that, especially last year, how much this space was growing definitely started to slow down because of how I've been reading. So there will be additions to this shelf no matter what, especially Dungeon Crawler Carl. I have the second book. Again, it's gonna have to probably be a physical read, so it may take me some time to get through it, but it'll be on this shelf eventually. Eventually, I will make my way through that series slowly, because those books are just thick, man. Fantasy girls. I don't know how you do it, but there is some space here and there. But for right now, it is taken up by Ghostface and Beetlejuice. And one thing that I do love is that I do make space for my knickknacks. I love a bookcase with knickknacks on it. I think a bookcase that only has books on it looks fine, but it's just not fun. And you'll notice that as you move on through the rest of my bookcase. Moving on to the other side, as at the top here are all my queer stories. I realized at first I was dividing them up by demographic based on race. And one, I was just kind of like, well, I have white male and then I have white femme sitting in different areas because that is kind of, it's different writing. It's different books, it's different genres, it's different writing. And so then I started thinking, oh, okay, well, I would also like for queer novels to kind of have a different space as well because, again, different books, different writing. And I think that usually when I'm looking at certain things or making recommendations, I kind of look at that more. And I also realized when I sorted out my library, I love gay horror. Just love it. If it's a little bit gay, loved it. Absolutely love it. It don't even have to be like overtly, just even if it's a tinge. So so I wanted a space that I could grow into. And even looking at my physical TBR, I have a lot of queer stories and queer horror to read in the upcoming year. And I wanted space to grow. So that's where this shelf came from. That's all of my queer horror. I'm very excited that there's so much space here in the middle, and even a little there's so much space here in the middle middle right here. And some of the books on this shelf really are some of my top 5 of all-time reads. One thing that I did like about sorting my bookcase this way is all of my favorites weren't just in one place anymore. When I had it as genre, of course, in the horror section, in the speculative section, which was both of these shelves, these were my favorite shelves, bar none. And now I feel like I have favorites that are spread throughout, which I appreciate far more. So excited to see that. Of course, over time, Frankie and Bride will probably have to move to other locations throughout the year, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. For now, we have some great little cute little knickknacks here. Our next shelf is split into 2, like I mentioned before, with the shelf next to it. One side of it is Native American indigenous stories, and the other side are all of my mainly, I will say it's Asian stories. There are a few outsiders where it's like Mouth is South Asian, and the sacrifice is Filipino. And I think that that's kind of it. The rest of it is mainly East Asian stories. And I'm working on that. Again, I think that I like having it split up this way because I can look at this and go, huh, it is a little imbalanced. We need to work on that. But one thing I did notice though is that for somebody who has kind of gone with the narrative for a while, that I've had a struggle with reading Asian lit. I don't know. I think it might have been this upcoming year or something. I don't think that that's the truth because looking at this is a much larger stack of books than what's right next to it, which is Latino authors, which I've always had 5 stars. I've never had an issue reading in. And even at Indigenous, Native American, last year, I know that I fell off the map as far as discussing what I was reading during November, but November, I read nothing but 5 stars all month. There by Tommy Orange, 5 stars. Tiffany McDaniels on the Savage Side made me bawl out crying. I think it might have been in my top 5 of the year. The Buffalo Hunter, it got me back to possibly read any Stephen Graham Jones in the future. I absolutely loved it. Carson Faust's If the Dead Belong Here, haunting, amazing, beautiful, hole in the sky, weird, speculative, alien. All of those were literally from last year, as opposed to Bad Cree and Then She Fell, which were both reads from the year before that. So I'm very proud of what I read last year. I think every single thing that I read during the month of November were just amazing, and I'm excited to explore that far more. I have far more on my TBR now within the genre, and I want to within the community, and I want to read more of that throughout the rest of the year, like during March or during one of these off quote unquote off months that I have. I want to make sure that I'm reading more of that because I've kind of found like my niche within it. So that's been fantastic. And then finally, on this bottom shelf are all of my how-to books. I love finding cookbooks or craft books that are vintage, and how-to books to reference. I have a sewing machine I bought last year, and I want to learn how to sew this year. I want to learn how to quilt specifically, but sewing on a sewing machine would be fantastic. And so I want to do that. There's a lot of how-to books, and these are right next to like that shelf that had some of those self-help books. So I like to have reference books, y'all. I don't know. The only way I know how to do a lot of these things is looking things up, but it is nice to have like a hard copy of how to do something. And I am looking forward to kind of like picking out books from this section throughout the year, especially as I'm learning how to sew on a machine. First and foremost, in this section, up at the top are mainly my nonfiction and memoirs. Very straightforward, but I think one thing that I may run into is that this section is going to probably grow. Last year, during the month of August, which is Arts Appreciation Month, I chose to use that time to kind of look into reading memoirs of artists that I know, appreciate, all of that, and I really love doing that. I think it was great to kind of learn more, and it was my small slither of nonfiction for the year, and I appreciated it. There's not a lot of space left, and I'm not going to make a lot more space for my nonfiction. Just being completely honest. I read so much fiction. I know I love fiction, and so I don't really want to have it going into any other spaces. I think one way that I've found that I can make more room is by putting books on their sides like this. So that may end up happening, but we'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Mainly, I don't think that I'm going to have to worry about that much until we get to August, since that's mainly when I'll read something like nonfiction during that time. But this is my nonfiction shelf with my memoirs. Again, read some great things. I read The Chronicles of Doom. I read Crying in H Mart. I read A Song for You. That was amazing by Robin Crawford. A lot of recommendations. And you know it must be good if I kept it and it was a memoir, it was nonfiction. The next shelf here is also one of my favorite shelves, but mainly because it has a bunch of creativity and books that I absolutely love from my childhood, books that I've come across at the thrift store. Mainly, I don't really buy children's books brand new unless it's like somebody brought up a book and I'm like, "Ah, where can I find that book again? I absolutely love that book." Or something along those lines. I have a video on my channel that talks about my children's book collection and why I love collecting children's books and how as an artist it's really great for me. So make sure you go check that out if you're interested. But yeah, these are all of my children's books, and I also keep all of my like kind of toys and things that are like children specific or vintage. This is my Black author shelf. I am concerned about growth, to be completely honest with you. I have a lot of Black books I'm reading during February. I have a lot of Black books on my physical TBR, which you'll see in just a moment. I'm not certain if they're going to all fit on here. And when that time comes, I'll have to make some decisions on the shelf below it, which are my white female authors. I've read a lot of those authors because of a lot of BookTube, Bookstagram is a majority that are put on popular pages and stuff like that are white cis females. So they're going to recommend books from their demographic. And so I do have a lot of books from that demographic. I could see this turning into half of it is Black authors. It is a bit of a concern on whether or not there is enough space here, because there's no room up here. So we will see what ends up happening, if maybe I need to reassess what's here. All right, we're gonna just kind of bend down a little bit here. Right here on this shelf is my TBR shelf. So I started this last year, and it's been really great for me to kind of plan ahead, to make content, all of that, kind of separating these books that I'll be reading for the month ahead. I try to work by quarter, so every 3 months ahead. Right now, you can see my January, very loose TBR. January is kind of like the Wild West as far as what I end up reading throughout the month and everything. So we kind of have a very loose TBR that I'm working on right over there. We have my February TBR right here in the middle, and then we have my very loose March TBR right here. There's no way that I'm going to be able to read that many books during March, but it is a loose idea of what I plan on reading. And as I kind of finish, if I finish early, if certain things aren't ready, I feel very good on picking some things up from this part of the shelf. Up here at the very top of the shelf is my middle grade shelf. So I have my Series of Unfortunate Events series collection. I have my Goosebumps books that I've collected. Again, I only get these from thrift stores. I was gifted the Series of Unfortunate Events as well as the HP series that we don't talk about. I still have those in my library because of growing up on those books. I think that the pictures inside of them, the watercolors that were done by them, it's kind of the same thing as Series of Unfortunate Events, where it's just like I learned how to draw and love art based off of those things. And I've always wanted the hardcovers because I thought that they were honestly gorgeous to me. And I've had those for like years now. So I do keep them because I read those books when I was a kid, and I keep them in my library for that reason. Only that reason. Here on this shelf is my book counter. I got like a physical, like a cheap one. It's just nice to kind of have something physical to count how many books I have as I like go up into the year instead of just having them on these digital apps. But this is my coffee table kind of section. I say that, but there's like magazines, there's reference, again, this is more reference material, but like visual art reference books are in this area. Like I have a Art of Mondo design book. I have a Marvel and Watchmen art book. I used to kind of have it in this side over here, and didn't like how it was showing up on the on the screen, to be honest. And I didn't feel like there was a lot of. I just kind of threw all my reference and coffee table books in the same section, so it kind of feels more purposeful here. Down here on this shelf, which I think is actually the last bookshelf, like the shelf that has books. My comic books, I have quite a few Marvel comics. I collect a lot of vintage ones. I had to slow down on it. To be honest, I kind of hyperfixated a little too hard, a little too close to the sun. And my graphic novels. All of these are basically graphic novels or, again, magazines, art magazines. So that's what this shelf is. The rest of it is knickknacks or my tarot cards or other things that have nothing to do with books. So that is my overall bookshelf. These are all books that I have read or on my TBR. As for this shelf, now let's do a quick look at what my physical TBR bookshelf looks like now. Okay, camera died. There is a possibility that one day I may make this taller and add some additions to it. I hope not, though. Part of me hopes not, just because it's already overwhelming enough. Long line of things you see right here are all going to be available on my PANGO. They're on there right now. You can check it out down in the description down below. I have basically organized them the same way that I've organized my bookshelf over in the corner, by demographic, and that's mainly so that month by month I can figure out what's going to be on my TBR, and because of how I organize my TBR, this makes the most sense. So up in this area, we have white cis femmes, we have Latino authors here, these are all Black authors on this shelf. There's a little bit of a mix on this one. I have Native American as well as Asian authors in this area. I think I have like two books that are actually two books that are actually like white authors that just wouldn't fit on this shelf right here, and I just had a little bit of space, but we'll see what happens over time, what happens with even those books. This area are all of my queer writers in this section, male white cis authors here, and then these bottom portions are kind of a free-for-all. I have some graphic novels in this area, mainly nonfiction in this area, aside from, I mean, there's some books there that are fiction, but like I said, it's kind of a free-for-all, but a lot of nonfictions in this area, and then there's some fiction in this area, mainly classics. I think once we get down here, it's just whatever I didn't want to get rid of yet and wasn't at the top of my list, or I couldn't easily categorize it. Pretty straightforward, though. It's just I'm saying small. It's still overwhelming. That is all for my book nook area. I know that it was kind of all over the place. These book reorg videos and unhaul videos usually are. I don't think that I've seen anybody organize their bookcases the way that I currently have mine. I don't know why. I don't find that it's that crazy. We're starting to kind of see that even with our own DVDs and our Blu-ray. We're kind of at this point where we're just like, I feel like just organizing them by genre may not work anymore. Just organizing them by alphabetical order doesn't seem smart to do either, because our brains don't work that way. My vinyl is organized by emotion first, because that's how I find music. So I think that that's the biggest thing. And I actually wrote an article about it in Night Terror recently about archiving, and even the Library of Congress. They had mentioned you really need to organize things the way your brain works. It does not help or work for you if you can't find anything that you're archiving, because at the end of the day, you're the one who finds this information important, and if you can't find it, then it's not useful for anybody. These things are arbitrary, but they matter if you're just trying to make yourself a pretty library that's actually useful for you. And I think that that's something that during these book reorg videos, we don't really talk about. We're just like, look how pretty it is. Let me have all of my books face out. Are they in size order? Are they in color coded versus not? Oh my God, the amount of conversation around whether or not you should color code your library. And people are like, how are you finding anything? If you're, I can completely understand color coding. If you're like visual, If I can remember a book cover before I can remember a title of a book. If that's the case, then by all means, color code your books. Point of the matter is, you go out there and you reorganize your bookshelf and you do it the way you want to do it. And I hope that's the message you get from this long video. That was wonderful. Thanks again for sticking around for this long video of me rambling per usual. I hope it gave you some ideas. I hope it gave you the strength to also want to take apart your entire bookshelf and reorganize it. And maybe also get a side hustle of selling those books you don't want anymore on PANGO. We all need to do what we can during this economy. If you liked today's video, please subscribe down below. Also, hype up this video. That's a new feature here on YouTube. Give it a hype. I think that it helps. I don't know yet if it helps your video reach people. Give it a like, give it a hype. I don't know what the difference is, to be completely honest with you, but give it both so I can get to more people's screens. And I hope to see y'all in the next one. Thanks again, y'all, for watching, and I'll see y'all. Bye.